advanced version of the same atomic reactor which was used to achieve the first control of nuclear energy in 1942. The scientists who worked together in this historic experiment came from different countries: Italy, Hungary, Canada, and the United States. Their work in turn rested on studies made all over the world by men like Einstein and Hahn of Germany, Bohr of Denmark, the Curies of France and Poland, Yukawa of Japan, and many more. By sharing the fruits of their separate labors, these men of science gave us atomic energy. It is this same process of sharing between nations that is needed now. Looking toward the future, the road to international cooperation seems long. Yet, looking back, we can see we have moved some distance already. For example, radioisotopes, those miraculous byproducts of the atomic pile, were first shipped abroad from the United States in 1947. Great Britain followed suit, and other nations, notably France and Norway, also became exporters of isotopes. As the usefulness of these radioactive materials became known for agriculture, industry, and medicine, a flow of isotope shipments went forth to many countries of the world. Skilled technicians were urgently needed, and as another first step toward international cooperation, a few nuclear institutes admitted a handful of foreign students. As one further step, here in Copenhagen in 1952, 11 European nations joined together to form the European Council for Nuclear Research. Then, at the United Nations on December 8, 1953, the United States took the initiative.
I know that many steps will have to be taken over many months before the world can look at itself one day and truly realize that a new climate of mutually peaceful confidence is abroad in the world. But I know above all else that we must start to take these steps now.
President Eisenhower proposed that an international atomic energy agency be founded. This agency would acquire nuclear materials from member nations. It would mobilize scientists everywhere to advance human welfare through the atom. The new agency could take humanity a great step forward along the high road. The plan was applauded by the entire world, and negotiations began for a permanent organization. In 1954, further progress was made. Scientists of 16 nations met at the University of Michigan in their first General International Conference on Atomic Energy. In November 1954, the first atomic library, comprising thousands of items, was presented by one nation to another. It went from the United States to Japan. Similar libraries were later presented to more than 40 other nations. To a layman, these technical papers are a mystery, but to nuclear students everywhere, they opened a vast new world of study. At the next meeting of the United Nations General Assembly in 1954, delegates of many countries responded enthusiastically to President Eisenhower's proposal for an international atomic energy agency. From the United States and the United Kingdom, there came a specific offer to give fissionable material to other countries for research purposes. This atomic fuel would activate a large number of new research reactors in other countries. From France and Canada, there came specific offers to admit foreign students to their national institutions. In this way, they would share the benefits of their experience with other countries. As the discussion continued, many voices were heard as delegate after delegate rose to speak for his country and for the future of mankind. Speaking for Norway, Finn Mu said that as modern civilization is based upon the use of energy, the discovery of the new force will have effects beyond calculation. In Norway can be seen a pioneer example of atomic cooperation by two nations. Here at Skjella, the Netherlands and Norway jointly operate an atomic laboratory under an agreement signed in 1951. The staff of this project includes experts from 10 countries. A regular exchange of materials and information flows between this project and other nations of Europe. In the United Nations, the Atoms for Peace debate continued as Krishna Menon spoke for India. Atomic energy, he said, was certain to create great changes in the world. For India, with her expanding industries, these changes would be of great importance. Atomic projects like this are supervised by scientists who are part of India's growing corps of atomic specialists. As one of the leading nations of Asia, India is ready to contribute its full share to the world in developing the peaceful atom. Speaking for Brazil was Professor Ernesto Leme. His people, he said, look upon the program as a magic hand entrusted with a divine spark. This is the city of São Paulo in Brazil, a nation in transition between an agricultural and an industrial economy. Nuclear research has gone on for several years in the University of São Paulo. In Rio de Janeiro, nuclear studies are also conducted at the Center of Physical Research. Brazil would make every possible contribution to the agency from her store of knowledge and resources. Thus, one by one, the representatives of the people spoke, giving voice to the universal hope. Said Indonesia, "We are hopeful that the fruition of this plan may mark the beginning of a new era." Said Lebanon, "If the new force can beat back the desert, problems will yield to reason, and the bonds of friendship will form." Said Venezuela, "This resolution is a noble effort to place atomic science at the service of humanity." Said the Philippines, "Atomic cooperation could mean the forming of a habit, that of working together for the common good." One by one, the nation spoke with a common mind, a common aim, to establish an international organization for the peaceful use of the atom. Then, on December 4th, 1954, after 52 delegates had spoken, a vote was taken. The decision was unanimous for the creation of the new agency. A group of member nations was already at work preparing a charter for the new organization. But the act of looking through a microscope does not teach one the science of optics, nor does the possession of an isotope tell one how to use it. While the United Nations worked to create a charter for the new international agency, cooperation continued in the training of scientists and technicians. This is the first class at a new kind of school. In March 1955, students from 19 different countries began training in the technology of atomic power plants at the Argonne National Laboratory near Chicago. For 7 months, these students would study ways to derive electrical power from the atom. This is one way of cooperating for peace. And here is another way. The time, summer 1955. The Republic of the Philippines becomes one of the first nations to arrange with the United States a cooperative agreement to lease uranium for a research reactor and to receive technical aid. Within the next year, similar agreements were reached with 31 other nations. The next step toward international cooperation was at Geneva. The time, August 1955. What has been described as the most important scientific conference in history convened in the Palace of Nations. The subject to be discussed, atomic science in all its phases. Presiding was Dr. Homi J. Bhabha of India. His audience, 1,400 nuclear specialists from the laboratories and universities of 73 nations. The roster of delegates included names known around the world. Cockcroft of Great Britain, Hahn of Germany, Libby of the United States, Wexler of the USSR, Bohr of Denmark, and many others. Scientists have always known how to work together, exchanging ideas, experiences, and data. What one man had guessed at, another man had verified. Where one had failed, another had succeeded. So at Geneva, the world's nuclear scientists compared notes on materials, instruments, methods, statistics, proofs. In the exhibit hall, the tools of science, such as nuclear reactors for electrical power generation, uranium ore refining plants, accelerators for physical research, and the specific details of atomic installation were shown in many displays. At this important conference, many nations revealed hitherto secret results of their atomic research. An interested visitor from the United States, President Dwight Eisenhower, is impressed with what the exhibit hall promises for the future. Here he saw the United States swimming pool reactor. This operating unit was later sold to the Swiss government for use in its own research program. In Switzerland, at Meyrin, can be seen an example of regional cooperation, an important form of international effort. This is the site of the research laboratory for the European Organization for Nuclear Research. This and other regional groups, such as Euratom in Europe and an Asian nuclear center in the Philippines under the Colombo Plan, will play an important part in bringing the atom's benefits to mankind. The time is October 1955. Another group of observers is visiting the United States. It was in this act of passing an idea from one mind to another and then another that the atomic age was born. And it is in this act, repeated a millionfold, that the new force of the atom can become a blessing. From the United States, more libraries of atomic information go forth. By the end of 1956, a total of 47 nations and international organizations had received them. Each year, many more scholars of other lands come to the United States to study. This is the Institute of Nuclear Studies at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The subject of concentration here is isotope techniques. 22 different nations are represented in the faces turned toward the teacher. Gian Turco from Italy. Reclus Villa from Venezuela. Rafael Janella from Brazil. Abdur Rahman from Pakistan. Ramesh Kapoor from India. Programs such as this are beginning to meet the most urgent need in the field of atomic energy, the need for skilled specialists. When the training course is completed in Oak Ridge, the students return to their homelands. Here in India, more than 9,000 miles from the United States, is Ramesh Kapoor, back home, teaching others the methods he has learned. Halfway across the world in Venezuela, at the University of Caracas, here is Reclus Villa back home, passing on his knowledge to others. Here in Italy, 5,000 miles from Caracas, is Gian Turco, back home, in the Clinical Institute of Turin. Everywhere, it is a matter of sharing knowledge, of working together to make the atom work for all of us in the ways of peace. In September 1956, this purpose was ably served as delegates from 82 countries gathered at the United Nations to debate and approve the charter of the new International Atomic Energy Agency. This meeting was the culmination of 3 years of effort that began with President Eisenhower's proposal in 1953. After a month of debate, the delegates gave unanimous approval. A message from President Eisenhower was delivered by Chairman Louis L. Strauss of the United States Atomic Energy Commission, with an offer that indicated the confidence of the United States in the new agency.
The United States will make available to the International Agency, on terms to be agreed with the agency, 5,000 kilograms of the nuclear fuel uranium-235 from the 20,000 kilograms of such material allocated last February by the United States for peaceful uses by friendly nations.
In addition, Mr. Strauss said, the United States would match the contribution of fuel by any other nation to the new agency.
Someday, we fervently hope, sanity will overcome man's propensity to destroy himself. Then the world can beat its swords into plowshares. All nations can turn their plants that make nuclear fuel to an exclusively civilian use. And the fuel in their stockpiled nuclear weapons can be put to work for man's health and welfare. In that happy time, the giant of atomic energy can become not a frightening image of destructive war, but an obedient servant in a prosperous and peaceful world.
Now the stage was set for the fulfillment of 3 years of hard work and of difficult negotiations. The representatives of the nations of the world came forward to place their signatures on the charter of the new agency. In mankind's struggle to make the atom serve the cause of peace, this was an historic moment. João Carlos Muniz of Brazil, chairman of the conference, ended the final session with an address to the delegates.
It can be stated, therefore, beyond any doubt, that we are entering a new technical and scientific revolution, which may have a much wider consequence than the first industrial revolution. The historical period now open before us far exceeds all the previous epochs in history, as far as the means that men will have at their disposal for harnessing the natural resources of the world are concerned.
To express this vision of a new era, Senor Muniz quoted the words of the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke. A great wind blew over the surface of the world, as though with his broad sculptor hand, God were turning the leaves of the dark book of the beginning. And truly, continued Senor Muniz, if that vision materializes, it will be for mankind the beginning of a new existence in which mutual understanding, hope, and happiness will again find their place in the human heart.